Take every ocean on Earth, every sea, every trench, every drop of water on our entire planet. Now imagine all of it, twice over. That is how much water is hidden inside a frozen moon smaller than the one in our own sky. It should be impossible. A world 1/4 the size of Earth, holding more than double the water. And yet it is real, sealed in the dark. Circling Jupiter right now. This is not a lake. It is not a sea. It is the largest ocean we have ever found anywhere. And tonight, we are going to try to feel just how big it really is. Europa is about 3,000 kilometers across. It's actually a bit smaller than our own moon. You could drop Europa into the Pacific Ocean, and width-wise, it wouldn't even stretch all the way across it. How does a moon that small hold an ocean that big on Earth? Our oceans feel endless. They cover 70% of the planet. But they are actually just a thin film on the surface, like the dampness on a wet basketball. The average depth is less than 4 kilometers. Europa does something completely different with its water. And once you understand how, the numbers stop sounding impossible, but start sounding terrifying. First, let's stack up the layers of Europa from the outside in. On top is the ice shell, the frozen lid we see from space. Scientists estimate it is somewhere between 15 and 25 kilometers thick. That alone is staggering. The deepest hole humans have ever drilled on Earth went down about 12 kilometers. And it took decades. Europa's frozen crust is thicker than that, and it is just the lid. Now go beneath that lid, and this is where the scale explodes. The ocean under the ice may be 60 to 150 kilometers deep. Let that number sink in. The deepest point in all of Earth's oceans is the Challenger Deep. At about 11 kilometers, Europa's ocean could be more than 10 times deeper than the deepest place on our entire planet. If you dropped Mount Everest into it, the peak would vanish, swallowed with kilometers of black water to spare. So why is it so deep? Here is the difference. On Earth, water sits in shallow basins on top of the rock. On Europa, the water wraps all the way around the moon as a single, continuous shell, kilometers upon kilometers deep, with no continents, no shorelines, no bottom shallow enough to wade in. It is not an ocean with land poking through it. It is a planet-sized ball of water, with a thin crust of ice frozen over the top. And now we can finally do the math that started this video. Even though Europa is only about 1/4 the diameter of Earth, that deep, all-covering ocean may hold somewhere around twice as much liquid water as every ocean on Earth combined. Some estimates push it to 2 or 3 times. Think about that ratio. A tiny moon, beating an entire planet, by double. The most water in the solar system is not on a giant world. It is hidden inside a frozen marble most people have never even heard of. But a number that big is hard to feel. So how do we actually know the ocean is this enormous? And not just a thin puddle under the ice. The clues are written all over the surface. And the first one is almost too strange to believe. Europa's icy crust is not locked to the moon underneath it. It is slowly turning, drifting, like the shell of an egg sliding around the yolk inside. Scientists tracking surface features found that the whole shell appears to rotate at a slightly different rate than the rocky interior. By some estimates, the crust makes one full extra turn around the moon roughly every 12,000 years. That is only possible if the ice is floating free. Riding on a deep layer of liquid that lets it slide. You cannot float and spin a crust like that on a thin puddle. You need a vast, deep planet-wrapping ocean underneath. The second clue is what keeps all that water liquid in the first place. Remember, Europa sits 5 times farther from the sun than Earth, where sunlight is about 25 times fainter. The surface freezes to around minus 160 degrees Celsius at the equator, hard as granite. By every rule of temperature, This ocean should be a solid block of ice. So what is keeping it warm? The answer is gravity and rhythm. Europa does not orbit Jupiter alone. It is locked in a precise dance with two neighboring moons, Io and Ganymede. For every one orbit Ganymede makes, Europa makes exactly 2, and Io makes 4. This locked rhythm, called orbital resonance, keeps tugging Europa's path into a stretched oval. So as it swings closer to Jupiter and then farther away, the giant's gravity squeezes and releases the entire moon, over and over, forever. All that flexing creates friction, and friction creates heat, deep inside the moon. It is the same engine that makes Europa's neighbor Io the most volcanic world in the solar system. On Europa, that internal heat is gentler. But it is enough to do the one thing that matters. It keeps the ocean liquid, from below, without a single ray of sunlight. A faraway frozen world, warming itself with nothing but the pull of a planet. And there is a third clue, the most beautiful one. Sometimes, the ocean escapes. In 2012, the Hubble Space Telescope spotted what looked like giant plumes of water vapor blasting off Europa's south pole, rising up to 200 kilometers into space. 200 kilometers. That is more than 20 times the height that planes fly on Earth. A fountain of ocean water erupting straight off the surface and into the void. The sea inside is not just sitting there. It is powerful enough to throw itself into space. There is even more written on the surface. If you know how to read it, Europa is the smoothest solid object in the entire solar system. Smoother than a billiard ball at its scale. Its highest features are only a few hundred meters tall, and it has almost no craters. Our own moon has more than 5,000 large ones. Europa has fewer than 50. Everything out there gets bombarded over billions of years. So where did the scars go? Something keeps wiping the surface clean and fresh, resurfacing it again and again. That something is the restless ocean underneath, constantly reshaping the ice from below. The whole face of Europa may be only tens of millions of years young, while the moon itself is over 4 billion years old. Put every clue together, and a picture forms that is almost hard to accept. A small, bright, smooth moon, wrapped in a shell of ice kilometers thick, floating and slowly spinning on top of an ocean deeper than anything on Earth. Kept warm by the rhythm of 3 moons dancing around a giant, occasionally firing the sea itself hundreds of kilometers into space. And inside that ocean is more water than our entire home planet holds. So how do we measure something we cannot even see? That is exactly the job of the spacecraft on its way there right now. NASA's Europa Clipper, launched in 2024 and arriving in 2030, is built to weigh this hidden ocean from orbit. It will measure how much the moon stretches and squishes on each pass, mapping how the whole world flexes. It will use radar to peer down through the ice and finally measure how thick that frozen lid truly is, piece by piece. It will let us put a real number on an ocean no human has ever seen. Now step back and ask why any of this matters. Why should we care that a frozen moon holds a lot of water? Because water is the one thing we always look for first. Everywhere we have ever found life on Earth, from boiling vents to frozen lakes, we have found it sitting in water. When we search the universe for life, we are really searching for liquid water. And here, on a moon we almost dismissed as a dead ball of ice, is more of it than on our entire planet. And the scale does something to you. If you sit with it, we tend to think of Earth as the water world, the blue marble, the one wet place in a dry and empty solar system. But that may be a story we told ourselves because we had not looked closely enough. Our oceans, the ones that feel infinite, that we have barely explored, that hold every creature we have ever known, are not even the biggest ocean near us. A moon you could fit inside the Pacific is holding twice as much. Suddenly, Earth feels less like the exception, and more like one drop among many. Because Europa is not even alone. Out here in the cold, beyond the warm reach of the sun, water seems to hide everywhere. Ganymede may have an ocean buried even deeper. Callisto may hide one too. Farther out, around Saturn, the moons, Enceladus and Titan are doing the same quiet thing, holding seas beneath their frozen skins. We are starting to suspect that these hidden ocean worlds may be the most common place for liquid water in the entire galaxy. Not warm blue planets like ours, frozen moons, with the real oceans tucked away in the dark. For now, Europa keeps its ocean sealed away. The largest body of water we know of, turning slowly in the dark, untouched and unseen. We have measured its pull, traced its cracks, and watched it spit water at the stars. But we have never dipped a single instrument into that endless sea. And so we are left standing at the edge of a number too big to picture, on the shore of the biggest ocean ever found, asking the only question that really matters. If a small, frozen moon can hide an ocean larger than an entire world, then how much water is really out there, waiting in the dark, on all the frozen moons we have not yet learned to look beneath?